Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Travel Market Life. I'm your host Ryan Haynes, and in today's episode we're going to be speaking to Chris Kinlock, Performance Director, and Billy Mohan, Senior Performance Analyst at Journey Hospitality, about digital marketing, performance metrics that drive revenue. We'll be covering investing in Google and wider digital marketing, measuring for ROI, data and tracking, and the difference between brand campaigns and performance for improving results.
Travel Market Life.
Travel Market Life is backed by Haynes Marcoms, a B2B marketing communications PR consultancy specialising in the technologies, travel, hospitality and property sectors. Create meaningful connections and visibility to grow. Haynes Marcoms cuts through the noise to resonate with target buyers, decision makers and influencers. From contextualising your mission to positioning your value proposition, Haynes Marcoms helps you address the issues that matter. Marketing, PR and social. Build profile, gain momentum, shape strategy with Haynes Marcoms.
Travel Market Life.
So joining me now is Chris and Billy. Firstly, Chris, thank you ever so much for joining us. I know you're the Performance Director at Journey Hospitality, and we've seen really how Google has had a big impact on the industry and how it's really driving those direct bookings. In particular, you know, we're aware of sort of the role of SEO, but also how meta search is playing big into the program. But what are some other key developments and changes we're seeing?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me, Ryan. I think there is two really big changes which are coming up within Google that are going to affect everybody, but will certainly be affecting hoteliers. And those two big things really focus on first-hand experience and the growing importance of that within Google search. Now, interestingly, Google always focused previously on authority, and authority came from essentially being a big name. You know, if you were the Guardian, then you might be ranking for something. Whereas going forward, first-hand experience is going to make much more of an impact. And for hoteliers, I think that can boil down to one thing, and that is guest experience. You know, guest experience is going to be key. And the two things which are coming out, which kind of relate back into that guest experience. Number one is happening right now, and that's the helpful content update, which has come through from Google. And the helpful content update is essentially what it says. What they're looking for is for more content to be on websites, which is providing help to users. And they're defining that help in a really interesting way. And it comes back to that first-hand experience. You know, it comes back to creating content for your website, which can communicate to an end user that you know what you're talking about. And we use an example, which is a really simple one, but it kind of comes up for a lot of hotels, which is the example of somebody searching for best dog walks in the Cotswolds. Now, if you can imagine that you're a luxury hotel in the Cotswolds that's also very dog friendly, you know, that's the kind of term which you might be looking to rank for. And where the helpful content update comes in is making sure that you're providing content which is engaging for people, which is timely. You know, is it autumnal dog walks? Is it summer dog walks? You know, what are people looking for? And helping yourself rank, you know, on Google comes back to providing content which somebody lingers on the page, they're scrolling through, they're engaging with it, and you're providing help for them. And I think that's a really positive way of kind of looking at a content strategy and how Google is changing over the coming years. Is we want to be more helpful. And the second one is the bigger one, and it's going to be the one which is visible for everybody. And that's Google's search generative experience. And that boils down to everybody's favorite buzzword of AI. And AI being integrated into Google. But what that's going to look like for people is essentially that you've got a robot's giving you an answer, and it's trying to be as helpful as it possibly can. It's providing you a few blocks of paragraphs of text. So, you know, coming back to that search term of best dog walks in the Cotswolds, you know, that will begin to generate an answer, which is a few paragraphs long, which says, oh, well, actually, looking at these areas, this is where you might want to travel to because these are your best dog walks. And it's kind of that conversational AI, which again is the big buzzword at the moment. But if you're a hotelier, if you're anybody that's looking to promote content, you essentially want to be the content that sits behind that AI. You want to have provided it the most relevant information that you can so that it can present that content out. And there's the kind of cynical value behind this is you're at the top of the page. And ultimately that's the game, right? Like everybody wants to be at the top of the page when it comes to Google.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because you can see how now the art of hospitality extends beyond the property. These are the conversations that you would be having at front desk, at concierge. This is the intel that you can be taking from the head of your staff and onto the paper of the page of the web, in order to be able to get people to find you, to understand the value and the experiences that you can offer. And it's this content we've talked about for a long time, haven't we, Billy? And especially the role that it plays in SEO. Now, we had SEO that I mentioned at the beginning, and you had meta search, which seems to be one end of the journey to where we've almost got up to recently. But I mean, what other tools and approaches, almost a baseline for Google, should they be using within their approach?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ryan. I think there's a breakdown into two. So you do have that organic, that SEO strategy, which is things like ensuring your Google My Business page is got all the content that you want to have on there, that it's relevant, that you keep it up to date. Things like that are really, really important. And then that you are providing content. And that doesn't just mean written content. It's really important that hotels start to think about visual content. You can already see in Google search results that video is getting higher and higher up the page. And that means vertical video as well as traditional landscape video. They're pushing YouTube Shorts really high up the page. So there's a lot of work that can be done to make sure that you're visible for some of those search terms, both from a written perspective, but also from a visual perspective. And then from a paid perspective, we would always say the baseline and the historic benchmark for Google has been search ads, so written ads, but there's so much more to paid visibility now. So there's discovery ads, there's display ads, there's YouTube ads, and then there's a product called Performance Max, which essentially pulls all of those into one. But they require visuals, they require video, and it's really important if you want to be visible across the whole suite of Google that you're factoring all of these in. So great if you've got search ads, that's a really good place to start. But start thinking about adding some display campaigns in to make it a bit more visual for a potential customer. Like, what does your hotel look like? From a search campaign, they don't maybe know that. If you've got some video, great, put it in some YouTube campaigns, get some visibility out there as well. So it's really about thinking about both of those areas, so organic and paid, but spreading as much of yourself as you can across all of them will increase your visibility.
Now, Chris, you touched on this earlier, but just to delve into a little bit more deeper, is the importance of audiences and understanding your audience and who you're talking to, particularly when it comes to the hotel guest.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it's the cornerstone of any marketing. Marketing is knowing who your guest is and who you're looking to target. And certainly for us, when we're looking to onboard a client, it's where we begin. That audience profiling piece comes from on-site data, comes from understanding how users are engaging, their demographics, the locations they're coming from. And it also comes back to that keyword research. None of what Billy was just talking about is possible without really understanding what those users are actually searching for. And that then becomes the cornerstone of your entire Google strategy. Whether that's a search ad, whether that's a display ad, whether that's a YouTube ad, it's understanding what are the challenges that people are looking to solve by searching, even if that is, I'm looking to book a hotel for this weekend.
I mean, there's so much factors to consider there, isn't there, across those different channels. And, with Google, the beauty, as you mentioned there, Billy, is that you've got this Performance Max that just allows you to distribute from one central location across a myriad of channels to reach your specific audiences. Beyond Google itself and, its channels, where else should hotels be investing in digital marketing?
I think it leads back to what Chris was just saying about understanding your audience and where they are. If your demographic's a little bit younger, for example, then places like TikTok are a great place to find those people, and you can do that organically or versus paid. It's totally open to do both. But I think, really understanding where your customer base are, and that can come from intel from your receptionist, understanding who they speak to and what kind of people they are, whether you're a family orientated hotel, and then you maybe want to go, focus on that, double down on that. But really the channel options are huge. You've obviously got traditional Facebook and Instagram meta advertising. You've got the new players, Snapchat and TikTok, if you've got a potentially younger demographic. You've got Pinterest. You've got all sorts of options to you from a paid perspective. But it all boils down to understanding if you've got a specific client base that that you want to target, where are they? And then using that intel to drive your marketing strategy in terms of what platforms you want to be on.
And it's fascinating because I had a conversation with Jamal Ben Amour, who opened a couple of properties over in Saudi Arabia, and they wanted to do social media, and they just like, right, we've got to be on Facebook. And it so transpired that their guests were not people from outside of the UK. They were all from Saudi Arabia, and they were not using Facebook. So as you say, it's really important to understand your audience and what channels they are using to communicate, and how you can then infiltrate those spaces and places. Yeah. Now, once you've identified all of that, data and tracking is absolutely key. Now, what numbers are we looking at really when it comes to understanding commercial success? Because, you see everything from traffic, visits, right through to sort of bounce backs, and we look at sort of booking numbers or revenue numbers. But realistically, if you're a senior leader, what do you need to be asking your team to be specifically looking at to understand the best investments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the answer is pretty broad. I think there's it's good to have more than one. I wouldn't say there's one kind of golden rule for this is the metric that you need to track in order to ensure that you're driving performance. So absolutely, traffic is really important. If you're not growing your traffic, you're going to struggle to grow your direct bookings. But we look a lot at how well are you driving traffic into your booking engine. So not just landing on your website, but actually getting into your booking engine, whatever that may be. And the proportion of that, are you able to improve that by streamlining the process on your website? We look at conversion rate as well. It's a really important metric to understand how valuable a channel maybe is to you. And then definitely looking at that OTA, that third party split versus direct. And you want to both grow that total number of sales, and absolutely should be looking at that. But also, if you can, shift that to a more direct, a higher percentage of direct traffic and direct bookings. That's the ideal for our clients. And ultimately, your return on ad spend. So whatever advertising you're doing, like we work as a rule that 10 to 1 as a return on ad spend is a good number to achieve. Anything less than that, and we would be concerned. But you can, we have channels that hit 30, 40 in terms of ROAS. But that's the ultimate number to understand, is this channel performing for me? Now, performing for me, there is, I'm going to break that down into...
It's not doing a belly dance, is it?
Yeah. Because you have two ways of understanding performance. So you have the traditional way, which is last click attribution. So a user clicks on a Google ad and they directly go through and purchase. Really easy to track. We love that. But ultimately, that's not going to potentially help you understand slightly more upper funnel channels, things like YouTube or more branding campaigns. And so that's where you have something like Google's data-driven attribution model, which looks at, okay, they visited through YouTube 3 weeks ago, then they came through a SEO article that was ranking really well, and then finally they came through Google Ads and purchased. Well, actually that YouTube visit was really valuable because that introduced them to the brand. And so it gives value to that YouTube visit as well as the others. So it's really important to understand both. And the great thing about Google Analytics 4 is it has data-driven attribution built into it. So you can look at look at it in both ways and understand the difference. But it's really important to understand how they both work if you're going to open up your marketing to more than just performance-driven marketing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing is, you've really got to understand, these numbers and what that means for your business. I mean, I've seen particularly over the last 10 or 15 years, it's just been about driving traffic to the website. But is that qualified traffic? Is it the right audience? Is it the right makeup of guest profile? And I guess, as you say, you can see that through the proportion of people that are going through the booking stages that are then actually confirming a booking. And then you're able to see that in the value of the booking. Is that value of the booking going up? If the value of the booking is going up, then that is obviously customers who value your product, and they're the people who you want to be driving time and time again. And you talk about this level of investment. 10 to 1, so £1 investment, 10 quid return, so to speak. And is it a matter? I mean, there's been a change really in psyche, or need to change in psyche of how to manage budgets for marketing, because traditionally there's been, okay, we'll put 10% aside, or if you're lucky to get 10% of the overall profit or revenue, which often most businesses don't even bother going anywhere near 3%. But they'll just have a lump sum, and they say, right, £200,000 for the year. Right or wrong way to look at it?
A qualified wrong, I think. We know ultimately there's always restrictions on budgets, but I think from our perspective, it's that planning process that helps feed into that. So, we were talking earlier about audience research, about keyword research. That kind of gives you your baseline. If there are 100,000 people searching, for relevant keywords, relevant for your hotel, then try and target them. And that will actually tell you how much you could be investing, certainly in Google search. And I think that kind of gives you your audience size, it gives you your potential audience pool, and it can give you a potential return. If we know that users are converting at a rate of 5.5% on the website, we know what kind of bookings we might get out of that kind of traffic. And I think it's that qualification that really can be done to help to forecast and prove the potential value of the digital marketing activity which hotels are planning. But we're also realistic, and if somebody only has £200,000 for the entire year, then you do the best you can. And what we tend to do is aim for, let's maximize the return to begin with, and then we can move on. You can move up the funnel once you've kind of maximized the bottom of it.
And we know, all success comes down to great partnerships, and that's having great teams that work well together. Now, when you're working with a hotel, you're not on site, you're not there, but you're dealing with people who are there on site. What do you believe, and what have you seen adds the most value? So, what if our hoteliers are setting up a team to look after Journey Hospitality, where will you get the most value and the most input to drive that success?
I think it's good to have a spread from across the hotel. So ideally people that dealing with customers, because we want to understand that customer base, but also ideally people that are working commercially on the hotel, and they understand, it's really important for us to know when you're running offers or when your peaks and troughs normally occur, so we can help feed into that. If you've got specific campaigns that you run as a business that you want us to follow, we clearly need to know about those. So it's really about having that spread across the business, so we have intel in all the different areas, so we can do our job, like you say, as a partnership as best as possible. And that's how we also try and work here. We have a spread when we work with clients of across different parts of the business, so that we understand as much about them as much as they understand as much about us. And that leads to a really fruitful partnership normally.
I was going to say, there's nothing worse than people giving you a job to do and you don't really have any insight as to what's happening in the business itself. I mean, you feed off that as much as you do from the data and analytics that you're pumping into the system anyway. So to get that visibility into sort of, the challenges and the opportunities available. But when we've all talked as well within the hospitality industry about the need to bring together the three departments of sales, revenue, and marketing, and essentially, you are sitting digitally within the meeting point of those three departments.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing I wanted to talk about was brand campaigns versus performance campaigns, because we've been talking a lot about performance marketing. And recently, I had the chance to speak to Best Western, Chris Bowling, about his brand campaign. Now, obviously, Best Western, our franchise, they got portfolios, and you work with a lot of independent hoteliers. How and when should independent hoteliers consider brand campaigns, and how does that work most effectively for performance?
I think the broad answer is that they should always be considering awareness campaigns. There's a line, I used to work with an account manager at Facebook Ads who would bring this out all the time, and their line was, you can't look for growth at the bottom of the funnel. And finding new audiences is always going to be key to growing your kind of bottom line, basically. So for us, it should be a default. That's not to say it is, because everybody's focus is on driving the amount of return, the highest amount of return that they possibly can. But for us, growing that brand awareness piece is so important. There are multiple studies out there, but there's an IAB study, which I always come back to, which talks about the kind of benefits of brand awareness on growing brands. And essentially, long-term brand awareness breeds long-term growth. And that it was a study of, I think, 10,000 different businesses that are running kind of overall brand awareness activity. And there's a really good line in it, which we've been using recently, which is around awareness activity is about building mental brand equity. It's taking up a place in somebody's brain. And then the kind of consideration activity, which we tend to focus on, is exploiting that brand equity. We talk to a lot of hoteliers about the type of campaigns which we're running, and often it can be, there's a 20% off offer, so we want to push this out to as many audiences as we can. And the line that we keep coming back to is, okay, that's great, but if they don't know how good you are at 100%, then why do they care that you've got a 20% off offer? And that's, for me, is about what building that brand equity is. That's creating a story, it's communicating what your brand values are, and that's the value of awareness activity beyond the kind of provable business growth that we know that comes from it.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to you both, Chris Kinlock, and Performance Director, and Billy Mohan, Senior Performance Analyst at Journey Hospitality. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.